Yo, 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 what's poppin', everybody? Welcome to the show today. You are watching Knowledge That Kills, episode 2. We got a very special guest for y'all today. He goes by the name of Bob Horn. We're going to have him joining us here very, very shortly. Just want to thank everybody who's tuned in right now. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Y'all are here right now. Say what's up. Hey, I see Conscious in the chat. What up, everybody? Oh, yeah. Racking them up. Alrighty, look. We running a little bit behind. It's 5:11, so I don't want to keep y'all waiting too much longer. We're going to get Bob coming up in here any minute. I need y'all to give a very warm and special welcome. I'm going to need a drum roll, please. Nah, that wasn't good enough. I need y'all.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Alrighty, y'all. I want y'all to give a warm welcome to our very special guest, Mr. Bob Horn. He's going to be joining us live from Los Angeles here in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom.
What's up, everybody? How's it going?
Yo, yo, yo. What's up, Bob? How you doing today, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for joining us. How's it like over here in Los Angeles today? I see you're at the studio right now.
It's good, man. Yeah, it's a nice sunny day. The weather's good, you know. Kind of normal California vibes, you know.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Well, thank you for joining us today. You're one of the goats of the industry we're in right now. You know, you've worked on some really huge records. You're very accomplished. Obviously, have a lot of experience under your belt. Why don't you take us back to the beginning? Like, how did you get into music? Are you a musician yourself? Did you start off as an engineer? How did this all begin?
Yeah, I started as a musician, so I think like a lot of kids, like fifth grade, we had to choose whether to be in band, choir, or orchestra, and I chose to play the saxophone in band, and went through grade school and high school, and then eventually, I found a guitar in the garage. That was my dad. Started playing that, and then we had like an exchange student one year, and he played the drums, so I got introduced to drums. My grandparents had a piano, so I would play on that every time I visited their house. And eventually I just was playing all these instruments and having all these after school bands and playing in the school band, the jazz band. So I was just really into music, and it became just like all I did. So it was pretty much go to school, come home, play music, And I think I had a band for each instrument. So guitar, drums, bass, piano, and sax. And once I got deep into high school, I think everyone knew I was going to do something with music. And I ended up going to Berklee College of Music for electric bass and engineering.
Wow.
And I did both. Almost not quite a dual major, but I tested out of some engineering classes, so I was able to fill those in with bass classes and kind of keep them both going for all 4 years I was there. And before that, in high school, I had done, as I was in bands, we wanted to start recording ourselves. So I started getting to that and learning how to work PAs, and I did sound at my church, and then, we started getting into like recording and the ADAT machines and the 4-track cassette recorders, and, just collecting microphones and just trying to record ourselves. And so when I went to Berklee, I decided, I wanted to be in the studios. I wanted to learn about recording, and they have like really great facilities there, even better nowadays. But yeah, I was basically playing music and learning about production and engineering, and went through all of college doing that, and ended up in Nashville after college. And I was there for, I guess, 3 years, and as an assistant engineer, and started my career there, and started working underneath some really good engineers, really tough light guys. And after a few years, I was kind of bored with both the city and the music. Back then, this was like early 2000s. Nashville was it closed down at like 7 p.m. So it's like, and all, it was pretty much only studio for me. There wasn't a lot of life in that city, so I wanted a more exciting city, and I was kind of bored of the music I was working on. So I had friends out here in LA. I just decided, you know what, I'm moving out there, and a couple other friends of mine wanted to move out here. So we just kind of all moved out here together and you know, started over out here. And I went up the ranks here. I started out as an engineer here, but I was independent, so I didn't know anybody except my couple friends that were here. And I ended up starting to work in New York, so I was flying to New York and working there more than LA, just because I had to hook up there with a producer. And eventually, I met people here in LA, clients, and I think the biggest break early on was with this producer named Nephew. His real name is Theron Feemster, and a super talented guy. I became his daily engineer guy. I would go to his house, and he would make tracks, and I would record it all and help edit it and do the rough mixes. And then whenever we would go into the big studios, I would do those sessions with the artist. And we were working on with some pretty big artists back then, like Brandy and all kinds, Jay-Z, a bunch of different people back then, and R&B and hip hop. And I would basically mix and track everything that Nephew did for about 5 years. So that's really where I cut my teeth and learned and got a lot of practice. And then after about 5 years, I think it was like maybe 2006 or 7, it was kind of winding down, and we all kind of went our separate ways. And I built my first room at a commercial studio, and outfitted it with an SSL, and combined my gear, and we bought a bunch of other gear, and I just kind of ran that studio for myself for about 3 years. And then around 2000, what was it, that would be like 10, started looking for another spot, and we built this place, which is the Echo Bar Recording Studios, with my partner Eric Rikers. And he's got a control room, I have a control room, we have a big live room and 3 booths. And I pretty much just mix nowadays. I stopped recording a few years back, and I mix out of here every day, and I've been here about 10 years now. And it's been lucky to get on some decent projects and meet a lot of cool people.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I have a couple questions. So, you said
Sure.
that you went to school for electric bass. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, I played guitar, drums, bass, piano, and in school I played sax. But I met with an alumni representative from Berkeley, and he said the way he thought about it is bass players are the most in demand at Berkeley College of Music because there's the fewest of them. So he said, like, guitar players and drummers a dime a dozen, and you should go for electric bass since you really like it. And I couldn't decide, and I finally just chose bass. But then once I started getting into the studio life over there, that kind of consumed my time, and it was hard to just kind of keep up with the bass. But I did my best. But
Yeah. So, how do you feel being a multi-instrumentalist plays into your ability to mix engineer?
big time. Not that you can't do it. I mean, I know engineers that are great and mix famous records, and they're not musicians at all. But tracking, even more so, tracking is just being able to follow what the musicians say, uh, talking about song arrangement, and them telling you where to punch in and punch out on a song, especially if you're dealing with a whole band and they're great musicians. It really helps to know music in that atmosphere. And then also, like, hearing wrong notes or out of tune strings on a guitar and being able to say, hey, your B string is a little flat, and being right about it. Like, that stuff was all always cool. And then as a mixer, just, I feel like musicians like my mixes a lot because I ended up, I don't know, like, I think my mixes sound like a musician wants to hear them. That's kind of what some people told me. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know, like, I have perspective as a drummer and as a bass player, and but I also try to have a perspective on what is commercial and what trends are. So I don't know. I just feel like I have all that knowledge. I just combine it into one. I don't mix a lot of live instruments because of the genres I mix. But when I do, I feel like I have a good handle on even editing, like drum editing. It's like I know what a drummer's doing exactly with ghost notes, and I don't make mistakes that someone that doesn't understand rhythm and drumming might do. But I don't know. As I get further and further in my career, mixing more program music, I think it probably matters less. But somehow that knowledge, I think, it enhances things a bit.
I see. I've seen on some of your credits that you're actually like credited as an engineer and a guitar player on them.
Oh yeah, for nephew especially, I would, as a producer, that I mean, he played keys, but he didn't really play guitar or bass. So sometimes we'd be making tracks at the house, and he would just grab the bass and put it in my hands, or grab the guitar, and I would play ideas, or he would tell me ideas he had in his head, and I would end up with the credit, of playing that. And then other times when we went to the bigger studios, he might hire a guitar player, like a real pro, and that guy would play. So, but yeah, a lot of times I got to sneak in there as an instrumentalist just because I could play well enough that he liked what I did. So
That's amazing. I think that goes to show that, you know, having multiple skill sets and being able to like flow like water can help you a lot in the industry we're in. That's definitely helped me. Could you maybe share some times where you have felt uncomfortable, but you knew you were capable of doing it, so you achieved something that was maybe out of the norm for you?
uh, I can't remember anything specifically like a big situation, but I'm sure that happens. Over the years, it's like they someone presents you with a task that just might be out of your wheelhouse, like you just have never done it before. And I think the definition of being an engineer is finding a solution. I mean, that's what we do. So if
For
it's
sure.
you know that's one thing that I mean, it plays into mixing, but I think tracking even more so. Like someone wants to be creative, and they're like, hey, I wanna make this weird sound I hear in my head, or I want this effect, but I don't know how to describe it. And you know uh, just being a little bit of an inventor and explorer with your skills to try to find the solution. And yeah, I can't remember anything specific other than um I don't know, just like miking up weird things, like uh recording a door knock, but layering it with a kick drum, stuff like that. Like sometimes people will ask you to do things, and they're more difficult than just a simple strap on a plugin and ready to go. So it's you know I don't know. I can't think of anything specific, but there's definitely been some creative editing and mixing. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I most definitely can relate. Engineering is very, very go with the flow.
Hmm.
I couldn't even imagine trying to be an engineer who was like very like OCD, because almost nothing is like planned, even in the
Yeah.
sessions. One
Yeah.
day you go to open your plugin bundle and it expired, and you're like, ah, shit, and you don't have the card to renew it, so you got to find a new plugin. Something.
uh.
I do have some questions. I found the one that's you, engineer and guitar player, and it's on the Cheetah Girls. I'm
Oh,
curious.
Cheetah Girl. Yeah.
Could you talk to us about that project? That's really cool, honestly.
So yeah, that's just that was a situation where we had made a track, probably at nephew's house. That was nephew again, and I played guitar on that, and I don't even remember the track at the moment, but um, I had played the track, and then it got placed later, so that I wasn't actually playing it knowing that it was going to be for the Cheetah Girls. It was just an instrumental that was sold later to the Cheetah Girls, and so I just because we didn't get rid of the guitar, I ended up being the guitar player on that. But then I I engineered that as well. So yeah, it was just kind of a typical situation. Like I play on a bunch of tracks. We would do like probably 20 or more tracks a week, just cranking them out. So I would play guitar on any number of them, and then we would burn them to a CD, and then the manager would start slinging the beats out there, and
Mm.
trying to get them sold. And other times artists would come in, like I don't remember this Cheetah Girl situation, but artists would come in and listen to beats. We would just go down our hard drive. We had one hard drive with like thousands of tracks, instrumentals, and we would just pick out the ones they liked, and then someone would start writing to it, and then we'd start recording, and then by the end of the night we had a song. So that was kind of
Mm.
the typical way we did it.
I see. Running the machine.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've seen a lot. Engineering with producers and stuff, they're very good. They bring in the writers, they bring in the co-producers, they bring in the engineer, they bring in the artist, and it's like it's a machine. They're not leaving the
Yeah.
studio with beats. They're leaving the studio with songs.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's really really cool, man. Um,
That that's I think that's important too, because if you let them leave with a bunch of tracks, as a producer you can end up not getting any placement, because once they're out of your studio and they've taken them home, they could lose interest because they got beats from another producer. They could just You don't have any quality control over the writing. So sending beats to have them written on when you're not there is not the best move, unless they're just top notch people and they're just salivating over the beat you made, or I don't know. There's a lot more you're leaving to chance than if you get everyone in the studio. You can have quality control over, like, oh, that bridge you wrote isn't great. I love the hook. Let's rewrite the bridge, and then demo that up and get it placed.
for so. I don't know if you see, I just changed us to the diamond background because you dropping the gems on us.
Nice.
um, I wanted to so the Cheetah Girls is 2007, right? And then I see in
Okay.
2007 you also did um, Timbaland presents Shock Value. Could you talk to us
Yeah.
a little bit about that project?
So I was having dinner with a friend, and I was just talking about how I wanted to work with Timbaland, and he picked up the phone at dinner, made a call to a producer that happened to be working on the project, and because Timbaland, he would also co-produce with other producers, and leave them the task to write and produce a song, and he would produce on top of it.
Right.
So I worked with this guy Walter Millsap. He hired me to mix, and it was just a cold call from my friend, like, "Hey, why don't you try out this guy Bob Horn?" And I think I had met Walter before, but we'd never worked together, or maybe I worked for him. I think maybe I worked for him a few years earlier on some demo stuff, but we kind of lost touch. And so my friend just made that call and hooked it up, and next thing I know, I'm like the next week in a studio mixing a song for Timbaland. And Timbaland was the coolest guy. He was actually on tour with Justin Timberlake at that time that I was mixing, so he
Mm.
couldn't be in the studio. So we just worked over the phone. Like I would email him a track, and I'm in a mix, and then he would call me and tell me what he wanted to change, and I would make the changes and email it again. And yeah, it was just one day I mixed a song called Fantasy on there, and yeah, it was interesting because Marcella had mixed most of that album, and I was kind of like the odd man out. I just mixed that one song, but got a lot of compliments on it. That was a fun experience. Yeah.
That's super awesome. Yeah, you're the goat, man, for real.
No.
Um, I I want to continue moving forward, because that's 15 plus years ago. You're mixing huge records, and then you continue on for a long time. You have a very diverse resume as a
Hmm.
mix engineer. You've gone from Neo over to like Ashanti. I see Barry Manilow, Usher, and then
So the
go ahead.
Barry Manilow, the Barry Manilow is a mistake. That's another guy. named Bob Horn. He was a horn arranger. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. He's much older than I. But
Okay.
the first credit of that Barry Manilow is before I was born, actually. So that's not me. But
Okay.
you
Okay.
know, like that, it keeps having like re-releases and remasters and stuff. So his name keeps popping into my credits, and I try to get it fixed once, and I can't. But even so, I do work in a lot of different genres, like anything from smooth jazz like Dave Koz and Brian Culbertson to trap. I'm working with a trap artist now that's phenomenal, and that's more on like the development side and all that kind of stuff. And then uh, yeah, R&B, K-pop. You know, I do a lot of stuff for Korea and China, so I'm kind of all over the place, but it keeps it fresh for me. It's like I'll spend a week mixing, hip hop, and then I'll get a K-pop, and it'll just kind of be like it'll just it'll keep it from getting mundane for me, and just exciting the musical senses in different ways rather than seeming like it's the same all the time. So I enjoy like kind of being across different genres.
Yeah. That kind of leads us in. You mentioned you do K-pop. I've
Mm.
seen, and heard a lot of your work with BTS. Could you maybe break down what working on some BTS sessions are like? I know we've had that conversation of they're like massive, but could you maybe explain for somebody who hasn't?
Sure. Yeah, BTS. Their stuff is massive. They have 7 members in the group, and they're like basically 5 singers and 2 rappers, and God, their productions are huge. Like the music is big. There's a lot of tracks, and then there's a ton of vocals. Like sometimes there'll be over 200 vocal tracks. I mean, I've had sessions that are like 250, 300 at the most. But a common is like
Damn,
180
son.
to 230, I would say. It's a lot of tracks, a lot of stuff, but they're very organized and super professional and great to deal with. Like I love working for them. I get excited every time they call me. But yeah, they'll have each member of the group will do like their leads, their doubles, ad libs, backgrounds, and then they'll do gang vocals. So you multiply that times 7, and it just becomes this huge thing. And it usually takes me a few hours to organize it and get a handle of what's all in this song. Like what's this Pro Tool session have in it, like, and
Wow.
just kind of organizing everything. And I use track colors, so like every track has a different cue to it, so I can kind of see at a glance without having to read the names what is what. So like all my drums will be blue, and then I can, well, as I'm scrolling through these 200 tracks, I can find the drums real quickly, and kind of organize all the leads together and then all the doubles together, and then once I get that all organized and figured out, I start listening to the song and learning it, and then I start mixing, and I try to go fast, but at the same time, it's just so much. You kind of have to mute a bunch of stuff to get a handle on it, so you can hear into the production and hear what the groove is doing. And then once you get that mixed, then you turn on a few more items, and then you got to get those sitting right. And then I'm checking like the rough mix to see what vibe they had going, so I don't go off in the wrong direction. And with their stuff, since they're at times they're the biggest group on the planet. I mean, they had a whole issue of Time magazine, like not the cover, but a whole issue,
It's
and
crazy.
like they're on a huge level, so it's a little bit of pressure. So I take 2 days to work on one of their songs, just out of respect, to make sure I can have a handle on those 200 tracks, and either that or I'll just do a really long day, like 12, 15 hours, just to make sure I've kind of seen every corner of the song and not left anything out. And I take a break, rest my ears, and I come back and try to make sure creativity is at a maximum and that you're not bored. I have this thing I do every 8 bars. I'll separate, so I'll listen to 8 bars and try to make sure it's not boring, and I'll listen to the next 8, make sure that's not boring, and try to make sure that your interest is kept every 8. So yeah, it's kind of a daunting experience, but I love it. You know, I love the challenge, and it's a lot of fun working with them. And then once they hear the song, they always respond with notes, usually from Korea, unless they're in town, and they're very detailed. And since I don't speak Korean, it's helpful because they'll spell things out phonetically. So they'll say a word and they'll spell it phonetically, and then they'll say that it's at 1 minute and 18 seconds. So I can find
Mm.
that easily and do the exact note. So I don't, even though it's a huge production, I don't have a whole lot of notes with them. Like I think out of I think 3 rounds of back and forth emails is the farthest we've had to go, but it's usually like two. But usually it's like put more delay on this guy's vocal, but take more delay off of this guy, and so
Mm.
it's pretty cool, and they make it easy. I'm glad they do because they're huge session.
Uh, I think that that is so cool that you are able to like, communicate with an entirely different language through music, which in itself is almost its own language. You know,
Yeah. Mm.
that's really amazing. Um, I I'm curious on a BTS session or really on any of your sessions. Do you have a kind of theory you follow? Do you normally start with vocals? Do you start with drums? Are you based on the
I
track?
Well, the first thing I look for is problems. So if there's something that I think is majorly out of whack, I'll start with that and get it done and fixed if possible, so that I can get away from thinking technically all the time. So my assistant will set it up. He'll color code all the tracks. He'll check for bad crossfades, check for problems. If there's something we need to go over, he'll tell me, and then he loads it up on my computer, and I just start going. But once I make sure there's no problems, then it kind of depends on the song and the genre and what it's based off of. Like if the big thing is like the groove, then I might start with the drums, bass, and like one or two keyboard. And I'll call that like the meat and potatoes of the song. So I'm not going to worry about an extra shaker or a transition sound going to the hook. I'll get to those later. I'm just going to work on the meat and potatoes of the song and make that really slap, really kill you, and then get that lead vocal in there, mixed in, sounding like $1,000,000. And make sure that's good, and then everything else like background vocals and extra percussion, extra synth parts, all that stuff can be mixed in around the important elements. Other times I'll start with the whole thing, and I'll just have everything unmuted and going, and I'm just kind of doing little tweaks and trying to make it feel as good as possible. And then if I need to, I might take some time and mute a few things, get them out of my ears, so I can focus on like maybe the bed of the percussion and how that sounds. Or if it's a song with a live string section, I'll take some time and just work on that and get it sounding good, and make sure it's gonna fit in with the other instruments, before I work on the whole song as a whole. But I do have those days where it's just like, let me get this lead vocal sounding good first, and and then start with the main keyboards and then drums after that. So it kind of depends what the song is doing and what genre it is, because I change back and forth, and that's also why I don't have templates. Um, I've tried templates before and it didn't work for me because what I work on is not similar at day in and day out. It's different every time. So uh, I have like a master bus template with subgroups and final masters, and then the routing through my summing mixer and stuff. But I don't. Other than that, I don't really have templates because they don't fit from song to song for me. I have presets that I'll use and I'll start with, but they're always starting places, and I always end up tweaking them.
So, can you tell us then, if you have presets, what are some of your go-to plugins you're using on your mixes? Let's start with an EQ, and then maybe go into some compression.
Okay, so I have a few EQs that I use, and the main one would probably be the Fab Filter Pro Q3. Also, another main one would be metric halo channel strip. Those are my two main EQs. And then secondary would probably be the SPL Pass EQ by Plugin Alliance. I also like the Chandler, the Curve Bender. Um, that one is great. There's a few. Sometimes I break out the Massey. It's almost like a tone control. It just has bass, mid, and treble. It has no frequencies and no bandwidth.
Hmm.
I really like. I really like the Brainworks SSL 9J channel strip.
Amazing.
I have a controller for that. Uh, this guy. So I use
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah. Is now to work with a few different channel SSL channel strips by like Waves, UAD, Brainworks. It's a company called Rock Solid Audio. But yeah, I that's another thing. Like I have my standards, but then I'll mix it up too. Like sometimes I'll be like, let me break out a Waves random EQ, like the Kramer. There's certain tricks and certain things when I hear what I do with plugins and the way I choose them is I hear a sound, when I pull up a track, and then I hear it finished in my head, and then I decide how can I achieve that goal, and I'll instantly hear it's like, well, to achieve this goal, I need to use the SPL Pass EQ. It's real simple, and I can just do this and this, and it's done. Other times I need the Waves Puig Tech, Pultec EQ, and other times it's like I don't know what this needs. Let me just go searching in my plugin folder and see what I want to experiment with. Maybe it's the Sheps 1073 or something like that. But there's so many good plugins, and I buy so many. Like I have too many. It gets too much to look at. But compression, my favorite compressor in the last few months has been the KH comp. Is that Black Rooster Audio? I forget. It's a Cohen Heldens, which is another engineer. It's his signature plugin. It's called the KH comp, and his name is Cohen Heldens. I want to say it's Black Rooster Audio, but at the moment I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it is. But
Yeah.
I like that. I like the SPL Iron, which is another Brainworks. I like the UAD API. It's called the API Vision channel strip or something. That has a cool compressor. The Focusrite Brainworks channel strip, the ISA, that has a great compressor. I like the old classic SSL stereo compressor by Waves. I use that every once in a while. And then another one that sounds nothing like any of those is Renaissance Axe. I use that a lot by Waves. R compressor. Those are kind of my typical go-tos. And then again, like if on a day I'm just feeling like, you know what, I want to experiment. Let me use something I haven't used in a while. I'll just start going diving in the plugin folder and find something new, and maybe it won't work, maybe it does. And then I also have a few pieces of Apple gear that I will break out as well sometimes.
How about reverbs and delays? What do you go to for that?
So yeah, I like. Uh, I have a bunch. I have the Valhalla stuff like the Room and Vintage Verb, the Sonsig reverb. I love that thing. And not a lot of people use it, so I like sounding different sometimes. Um,
Amazing.
the Reverb One by Wave by wait is it Avid? I think it's Avid. Reverb One. Um,
Mm.
Little Plate by Sound Toys is a great one. The UAD 140 and 250. Uh,
Yep.
Seventh Heaven, their plugin, not their IR presets, but their actual plugin. I love that. That's a Bricasti uh, clone, and it's so close. It's incredibly close. And I have a real Bricasti as well. I'll break out occasionally.
Flex.
Um, Ultraverb is a good one.
Nice.
I have a few things that I use when I want, an impulse responsive, a real room. I have a few things. Like one is for like rock guitars. It's like this club in New York called the Tonic Club. I love blending that in on rock guitars because it's a dirty, boomy room, and it just I don't know, it sounds great. I also have a bunch of presets on Valhalla Vintage Verb. I use like chambers and rooms and halls that I'll break out. Again, if I hear it in my head, I'll just think, all right, I think I need the sound sig on this, and I'll pull it up. And the more I do it, the more I'm correct. I hear what I had, and I ended up achieving it. But yeah, those are probably my main go-tos. I've heard the new Isotope Verb is nice. I might cop that soon.
The Neo Verb, I think it is, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I haven't tried it yet.
Even the Nectar 3 verb that's in that Nectar plugin, that reverb is nice. I like that too. That's probably
That's
they probably got the idea from that to make their reverb plugin.
You know what reverb I love the most off of a plugin? The chamber off of CLA vocals.
CLA vocals. So the oh yeah, okay. I use the tight delay on that
Oh yeah.
occasionally. Yeah, the verbs I don't use that often on that plugin. I mostly use the compression, the top end, and the tight delay. Sometimes the stereo widener. So I'll use like those four things on the CLA vocals.
That's dope. You had touched on whenever you hear something and then you try it and you're like, oh yeah, this is right, and it brought back to me like getting familiar with what you have, and then also like the ear training for it. I feel like you almost can envision like your finish line, and that's what helps to get you there, because you're like, oh, this vocal needs a little brightness. I'm gonna throw this EMT 140 on there or something. How big of a factor has that played in your ability, and how big of a factor does that still play in your ability of getting better? Because I'm sure, as all of us, every day your mixes get better and better, huh?
Here, you mean how does hearing the finish line
Yeah.
play into it? That's everything. I mean, yeah. I mean, as I developed the ability to do that, it became everything. I mean, just I won't start mixing. I'll keep looping a song and listening to it until I feel like I know where I want to go with it. I don't think I ever really just dive in and start doing stuff to do stuff. I think that's always a bad way to go, unless you're just experimenting and you want to see what comes out of it. That's fine, but you got to have time to do that. I mean, I remember at Berkeley, or in the early days, it was just like, let me just see what to do. I don't know what to do. Let me try something and see if it works, and then go to the next thing. And that's why I would end up spending 15 hours on a mix, and it's like, damn, we don't have this kind of studio time.
Right.
This is expensive. But yeah, if you can hear how you want it to sound, and then the practice comes in with learning how to get there, and then stacking those techniques. So it's like you learn how to make a vocal nice and crispy, but you learn how to do it the best way, and you try 10 different ways to get there, and you pick your best ones. And every day the vocal you're working on changes, unless you're someone that only mixes your own artistry or the same singer every day. But once you find out what works, then you try it on the next singer, and then that one doesn't work, so now you got to find a new way for him to achieve the best result. So you stack up those techniques, and now you have all these instances where you've tried to EQ vocals and achieve the best sound. So now when you're presented at one day with this vocal, and you're like, oh, this guy is kind of dark and boomy, but they said they liked really tight, airy vocals. How am I going to do that? And then you know 5 ways to get there. And so now you got to fine tune that list of 5. It's like, okay, I know 5 ways to get there. I'm going to choose these 2 and try one of those. And if one doesn't work, I'll try the other. And you just get better and better at that. And I think that's what helps, because when you don't want to get stuck on something, like if you find yourself EQ, and we all do, I still do, and it's usually a sound that isn't that great, or they recorded it bad, or it's just they mangled it with some plugin to get an effect, but they didn't realize they were messing it up somehow that I gotta kind of clean up. So maybe it's causing a problem they didn't hear in their environment at their home studio, and I gotta fix it, but I can't lose the vibe. So it's just practice, man. It's like really just putting in the hours, and you gotta have a natural ear, of course, but you can also train your ear. I think also listening to music. I know
Mm.
guys that listen. They come in. The first thing they do is listen to a half hour of music before they start working. And they just get their ears in tune with not only not only what things sound like, but just trends of like music that's coming out right now. What kind of delays and verbs are they using? And then what do I think they're going to be doing 6 months from now? 3 months from now, that kind of stuff. So it's yeah, it's a lot of practice, man. And if you can practice while you're working, even better. Get paid to practice.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, I know you mentioned listening to music for a little while before you start mixing. Do you maybe have
Mhm.
any other ear training that you do, or like resources to learn about ear training?
Resources, not necessarily. I mean, there's stuff out there, but I think you can do your own. When I was at school at Berkeley, they had ear training courses, not only for music but also for audio. And what they would do is they would play a song, and you'd sit there in the class, and they would play a song, and frequencies would get boosted one at a time. So they would boost like 500 hertz at a one-third octave, and you'd have to write down on your paper like what is that frequency. So what I did was I went to a music shop that was across the street, kind of a consignment used gear store, and I bought a 31 band EQ, and I put that thing in line with my CD player back in my dorm room, and I would just play music, I would boost frequencies, and learn them. Like, what does that sound like? What does that sound like to me? And I would do it with white noise and also music, and you just got to get your frequencies better and better that way. And now that we have plugins, and they, especially if you take something like the Fab Filter Pro Q, it's like you can solo the band and hear what it sounds like as you sweep around to find the EQ, like so many people do. And that's a good way of learning your frequencies, and the more you do it, the more you're going to learn. But just listening, man, like when you listen to a lot of music and see how people the more you listen to how people mix, especially mixers that people have either told you are good or are good or you like, you'll start to hear stuff wrong that you're working on and be like, oh, that reverb's too loud, because on all these
Mm.
records you've been listening to, the reverb's never that loud. Or maybe you're trying to do something new. It's like that. I think the reason people love mixing is that there's endless things you can do. I mean, there's a million ways to do stuff, and then there's the way that's you know I don't know if you want to say it's like the trends, what's popular on radio. It's like this, people aren't doing an extreme amount of bass. It's tighter nowadays, where in 2005 there was big bass. It's like there's trends to follow, but you also can inject some of yourself into it. But the more you listen to good sounding things and not just what you're working on, the more you'll hear problems that you don't like with what you're working on. You'll be able to correct them, or at least starting going down the road of trying to solve the issue.
Most definitely. I want to know, when it comes to like the times whenever you get a mix and it's already pretty much the idea that the artist wants, maybe even like the meters are like blowing out the top. What do you do to keep your mix like authentic to the artist's vision while putting your own kind of secret sauce on there?
uh if it's a situation where I'm just trying to make the rough mix better, then what gets added as far as my own element is just the overall tonality of it when it's done. Like, I'm not determined to like get a cool delay effect that I really like that I do on there. It's like
Mm.
I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, because if I do, 2 days later when I'm on to something else, they're just gonna hit me up and be like, "Oh, we don't like that delay. Can you take that out and change this and that?" So it's like, if I know I'm just trying to like make better what they turned into me, I just kind of stick to the books, and I just make sure it's, while you were talking about the meters being slammed, I try to achieve it sounding powerful, big, and loud, but not distorting and clipping. And in the past, like sometimes if it has to distort and clip, it just has to. Like that's if that's the vibe, and I'm losing something by undoing that, then I got to put that back. It's like I like to make the client happy so that they're a return client. So
Right.
unless it's like ruining the mix to where I don't even want to put my name on it, I tend to listen to them. But I also don't do attended sessions. Like I don't have people sit here on the couch while I mix, and so they see every aspect of what I do. And it's not to hide what I do. It's because I'm gonna do some weird shit that they don't know what I'm doing. Like some weird stuff with frequencies, and like taking a vocal out of the stereo bus, so I'm only listening to the reverb. But the vocal's on. It's only sending the verb, but I'm not hearing the dry vocal. So it sounds weird, and I don't want them to freak out and lose confidence in me. It's just some of the weird stuff we do as engineers. So I mix a song, and then I either bring them in or I send it to them and let them give me let me give me sorry, I can't talk to them. Let them give me the notes, that they want me to change. Um, and what I try to give them is as finished as it can possibly be in my head. And if they've given me a rough mix as a roadmap, I'm usually spot on or close, because it's gonna have the vibe of what they gave me, the raw tracks, but it's just gonna be better. It's gonna be more expensive sounding, more finished sounding. So that's how I approach it. I don't try to make sure I put my sonic signature on there. It just happens anyways. But occasionally I'll run into an issue where someone wants me to mix like someone else. So
Mm.
and then that's something I usually don't find out until I turn in the first mix, and they'll be like, "Oh, can you make it more like this song?" And I'll listen to it and be like, "I don't mix like this. I know who this is. This is so and so. You should have hired them. I don't mix like that."
Mm.
And I'll at first I'll be upset about it and be like, "Damn, I don't. They should have hired him. Why are they hiring me? I don't do that." And then I'll start to think on it. I'll listen some more, and I'll be like, "Well, what would my version of that be?" So if they didn't tell me to mix like this guy, but they told me they want it darker or warmer, or they want something that I just naturally didn't do on their song, and I'll
Right.
start to think, well, what would my version of pretending to be him look like, rather than trying to literally just mix like that guy. And I'll attempt that, and a lot of times I'll come up with something that's me, but it's leaned towards what they want, and usually that'll satisfy it. And you know, I'm not disappointed because I don't want to put my name on it, and it's weird and doesn't sound like me, and they're happy because they got what they wanted.
That's that's the secret sauce right there, Bob. Um, we did have some questions from the audience. If you
Cool,
would
cool.
like to move into those, I'm gonna start back when they first started asking. Our first question was engineering changes the way you hear music in a consuming way. Was it hard juggling mindsets between making music as an artist versus as an engineer? Did you have to compartmentalize the two?
Making music as an engineer versus, I'll say, as a musician, because I've never been a singer, as far as being an artist goes. But yeah, well, I would say making commercial music rather than just making 100% what you want to make as a musician, because there's plenty of great musicians that overplay, and they do stuff for themselves that won't work for a song. And the goal, it's not about selling out, but it's about getting music to a point where the most people will enjoy it, if you care to go down that road. Whether it's top 40 or just having a lot of fans, like you could be in a obscure reggae band that has a big following just because what you put out is so good. But when you get into the live musician genres like gospel and fusion and jazz and stuff, where people are almost playing to impress you, or they're playing to make themselves feel good or do something cool, like do these cool riffs and everything. when that's brought into a style of music, a genre that is not that. Like, let's say you bring in a guy who can really play amazing. He's got great, crazy chops. He can play crazy solos, all these riffs. But you have him playing a pop song that you're trying to get on the top 40. You got to reel him in sometimes. And as a musician myself, and I've done productions, I've done tracks, I've produced for artists, and sometimes when I'm trying to come up with a guitar part, I'm overdoing it. I have to get in the mindset of I'm distracting from the actual artist, the singer, you know? So I have to get in this mindset of almost commercialism, but it really is not about that. It's about serving the song. It's about calling attention, complimenting the song with a guitar part that's letting the artist be the star, not the guitar player. And some people don't get that. So and I will say on another aspect of that question, when I first got out of school and when I was in school, all I was doing was thinking from an engineer mindset. I wasn't thinking musically at all. So I was buying CDs. It was CDs, you know, back in early 2000s. I was buying CDs based on how the kick drum sounded and the cool drums and all those guitars are great. Let me get that. Let me get that CD. You know, I wasn't buying them because the song was good. You know, hopefully the song was good as well. But once I got out of school and I went to Nashville, it was good for me because Nashville, it's all about the music. And you know, I used to play slap bass all the time and these fancy, impressive riffs on the bass. And when I got to Nashville, I saw all these guys just playing simple finger style, and they were killing it and nailing it. I was like, wow, I didn't even play bass. Like these guys play bass, like they're serving the song. And I had to relearn, um, put my bass down, and I was just focused on being an assistant engineer, anyways. But I just kind of had to relearn like what's important and what what will get you the fans, what will get you people enjoying your song. And if you're doing one of those genres that's flashy musicianship, then that's what you need to do. But you know, it definitely is two different mindsets. Being only thinking about engineering and only thinking about music, you're going to get a lot further thinking just about the music. You know, I know engineers that aren't that skilled, but they keep getting hired and they keep having mixes and records out there, and people want them around because they contribute to the musicality of the song and they make people feel good. They make the sessions vibe right. So if you had to lean one way or the other, it'd be better to be a great musician rather than a perfect, skillful engineer that can EQ a piano perfectly. You know,
Mm.
like it'd be better to have the music right and just have the piano in there, and maybe it's not EQ perfect. You know.
Yeah, most definitely. I think keeping the instruments sounding like instruments is always the important thing. You know, there's nothing worse than when I open up a session. I'm like, oh gosh, definitely use Trillion on this one because the retro 60 bass sounds horrible. You know.
Yeah.
Um, I got another question for you. It says, what artists that you've engineered for were you the most impressed by their raw stems?
The raw stems. Oh, um, well, recently it's an artist named OTG Dex, which people probably don't know yet. Um, and the stems are from this BeatStars website, and you know, people in the industry might look down on websites like that sell beats, but whoever did this track, the stems are just immaculate and awesome, and every sound is great. Um, More regularly through my career, I'd say a guy named Brian Culbertson, who's a he's actually a pianist. His albums are mostly instrumental, unless he has a guest vocalist. But his multi tracks are just amazing to work on. It's like you pull up every sound, and it's like that's done, that's done, that's done with just a little bit of EQ, and it's like it allows you to be more musical on his stuff because it is so well tracked. And thankfully, with the advent of things like Splice.com and beat packs and quality sounds getting out there, tracks in general are a lot more. are a lot better quality than they were in like the mid 2000s, late 2000s, before that started happening. So people have their hands on quality drum sounds, and they got soft synths, better ones coming out every day, like Serum and all these different soft synths, Arturia, and the sounds are just great. So a lot of what we start with is of better quality. So then it's down to the vocals, and this is the one thing that is such a big contrast. I know I'm getting off the question, but you'll have these great sounds in a multi-track in a Pro Tool session, and then a badly recorded vocal, or they'll
Mm.
record guitar and not know how to record guitar, thinking that you just plug it in and go. So you have these immaculate tracks and this horrible guitar that you have to try to live up to the other sounds in the session, or this vocal where it's like the instrumental is amazing. When you meet the vocal, it's awesome. When you unmute the vocal, it sounds harsh, or it's just so compressed and distorted that it makes the whole thing look bad, even though the instrumental sounded great.
Right.
But and then of course, back to the question. Yeah, there's a handful of producers uh, out there where their stuff is just great. But I've had some great music, where the tracks were kind of rough, but it didn't matter because the song was so good that you just did what you could, and it didn't hurt the song. It still was a great song. So just do your best and try to make it work. But yeah, DTS stuff. They're I would say, to be completely honest, their stuff is fairly good. It's not amazing, but they're on the highest level, and their stuff is really good. But I've heard even better stuff. So it matters. I mean, if you want to have that top $40 million sounding production and allow the mix engineer to do his best and achieve the best result, you want to have the best sounds from your drums to your synths to your vocals. And I think most of the time the vocals are what fall short. You know.
Most definitely. Do you have a go-to vocal chain that you record on right now?
Uh, I rarely record anymore, but what I would have, I'm trying to look at it now. I have the AMEC 9098 channel strip, which they now just came out with a plugin on Plugin Alliance for. Um, that will be my pre EQ, and then a Locomotive 14B compressor, it's a tube compressor, and it's kind of boutique and rare, but it's not vintage; it's still sold. And then I either go through a box I have called the Oven or a Pultec for EQ, and
Amazing.
yeah, and then I have an alternate preamp that I really like. That's a 500 series called a Focusrite Red 3, and that's also a very very good preamp. I really like that.
What kind of microphones do you like to use?
So, being that I mostly mix, I haven't ever collected a big selection of microphones, but we have a lot of Lewitt mics and Vanguard mics. We have a couple of Royers, but my go-to vocal mics are um, the Lewitt 940 LCT 940, which is a tube mic, and it's on the warm side, but it has a knob that goes between FET and tube, so you can blend in as much tube as you want. Um, and it EQs really good. It works on about 8 or 9 singers out of 10. Um, and then we do have a Slate mic, which I haven't gotten to use yet, but we have it in
Mm.
house.
I love those Slate mics.
There's plenty of mics I love though, that I don't have, which are like the Neumann M59, like super high end, $10,000, stuff like the Telefunken 251.
Yep.
There's the M267 by Neumann, which is a little more rare and hard to find. There's a
Yeah.
studio here in town called NRG that has a pair, and they're my favorite piano and vocal mics. They're just great.
Wow.
But I would invest in like some really good tube mics, but I just don't record that much. So I just use the Lewitts, which I love the sound of, and the Lewitts, especially the solid state Lewitts, they sound like they're kind of professionally EQ'd already. Like they're a great starting point. So many microphones are dark and murky, and you have to EQ the heck out of them and make them sound like anything. So Lewitt does a good job of giving you a good sound right off the mic.
That's great. I haven't used a Lewitt microphone, but now that it's certified by Bob Horn, I might just have to pick some up.
Lewitt is a company that two guys that used to work at AKG started Lewitt, so that's where Lewitt comes from.
Mm. I like AKG for sure.
Yeah.
I find that they actually work really good for the rap vocals, you know, because they like to mumble on them and also rap like this close to the microphone. So since well, the high end ones don't, but some of the lower, you know, consumer level ones, right into the beginning of the pro level ones, pick up a little less low frequencies, so they work really good for that for me.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I got a couple little graphics for you and some sound effects.
Okay.
I don't know if you could hear it. It just said Bob the Builder, and if you can see on the screen, we got Bob with us
Nice. Nice. That
and
was so. I
Bob
have
over there.
credits. I have credits. You've probably seen like the when I worked for Nephew, they always put the builder in my credit. The Bob the Builder horn.
I
So
just cued the sound effect for you.
nice. Nice.
Awesome. Well, let's see. Do we have any more questions from our audience? Someone said the Vanguard V13 is my favorite.
Yeah, that's what we have. Eric, my studio partner, he has a stereo. I think it's a V3, V13. It's a stereo Vanguard that he recorded a choir with last night.
Really?
Yeah,
A,
yeah,
a choir on some stereo Vanguards, huh?
I think so. Yeah.
That I'd like to hear that. I've done a few like choirs from they travel to the United States or the world or whatever. We normally use U87s or something like that, just because that's what we have that matches. But
Yeah, yeah.
I'm seeing if we got any more questions for you, Bob, and then we've been here about an hour, so I don't want to hold up too much more of your time. I am curious.
All good.
Do you have anything that you might want to like plug or shout out? Anything along those lines while you're here?
Um, I wasn't prepared for that, do I? Oh yeah, okay. I have a new course on Warren Hewart's Produce Like a Pro. That just came out, I think, 2 weeks ago. Um, I'm not sure what it costs, but it's that's a good course. Really good song, pop song with a lot of low end. Really cool, like 808 bass kick situation, and a great singer. Like she's a great top liner. This girl Gina Fontanella. So that course just dropped a couple weeks ago on Warren Hewart's ProduceLikeAPro.com. Or
Amazing.
it might be Pro Mix Academy. He has two sites, but it might be on ProMixAcademy.com.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to have to check that out. I'm sure the audience wants to check that out too. We got a new question for you. It says, could you name a couple engineers you really admire for their approach to engineering?
God, there's so many. um, Geez, man. Lately, you know what? As far as their approach, I mean, I'll just have to go with their sound because that's all I know. Because I haven't watched these guys engineer, but lately I've been listening. I listened to last week a couple Ari Morris mixes, just to see what he does for like Moneybag Yo and Young Dolph. He's it's like trap music, hip hop stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean everyone from Pensado, Alan Meyerson, Derek Ali, mixed by Ali. So a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of young guys too. Of course, Serban and Jason, Joshua, Manny, Tony Maserati. Like all those guys are excellent. And they all have something unique, and that's what I like. And I think that's why those guys are so well known and sought after, because they all have their own kind of sound. God, there's a lot. There's newer guys like Leondro Hidalgo. He's really good. He does WizKid stuff, and he's a mixer here in Well, he's kind of everything's producer, engineer, and mixer. Um, yeah, there's a lot, man. But yeah, lately I was checking out Ari Morris's stuff. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a different sound than me. So sometimes I like to check out other engineers. Sometimes I may not even know who engineered it, but I'll hear a sound and like, wow, I don't do that in my I don't have those tricks in my arsenal. I kind of want to learn that and incorporate it. And of course, since I could just call them and ask, but I just it may not be a specific thing. Just might be their overall vibe of what they do on the mixes. So I'll just listen to their stuff a bunch, and then on a mix, I'll just kind of try to imitate that, and then I'll end up discovering something new that may not be what I started out searching for, but I'll just kind of add that new thing into what I do, and that's what's funny because I'll get asked questions about tutorials I've done in the past, and they'll start referencing something I do on my master fader or some effect.
Hmm.
And I'll be like, oh, I remember I used to do that. I haven't done that in like 3 years, you know. So,
That's hilarious.
but there's so many engineers out there, and so many inspiring ones. Yeah.
Most definitely. We do have a new question. Scotty Mac says, "Who was your first placement and how did you get it?"
Oh, well, I'm not really known for production as much as far as placements. I do have some placements, but they're more like film and TV stuff. So I would do production and tracks on the side when I wasn't mixing, and and then eventually I would sell them, to catalogs or get them placed on television and stuff like Love and Hip Hop. I have a friend that hooked me up, put a bunch of my tracks in those shows. Um, but
Amazing.
yeah, as far as like placing tracks on an artist that I don't, I've never done that. I mostly just mix.
Awesome. You mentioned a friend plugging you on this, and then also on the Timbaland project. Could you maybe share with us how important networking or having a network of peers around you who are like-minded are?
It's super important. It's the most important thing. It's everything. And I had to learn that the hard way, and I learned it late. But even though I had friends plug me with stuff early on, I didn't realize how important relationships are in music, and they're absolutely everything. That's why when maybe you might hear a project and be like, "Oh, I hate that. Why'd they hire that guy to do whether it's the mixing or playing guitar or something?" And it's like, "Why'd they use that producer?" And the reason is probably relationships. It's less of they're just trying a new guy. It's more of someone they trusted recommended a friend, and that friend happened to do the project, and now they're friends, and they like hanging out with the guy. If someone can be super amazing at what they do, but if you don't vibe with them and you're always arguing, or you don't like the vibe when you're in the studio with them, you're gonna be miserable. And I think that happens a lot. That's why people will start trying other people for hiring them. But relationships, especially as a producer and an artist, it's everything moving forward. Trying to grow your brand, trying to play songs. Uh, you got to be likable. People got to want to help you out, give you a shot. People have to want to work with you. And if like you're a jerk, but you have hot music, that'll fade away to the point where it's like, you know what, he's not even worth it. She's not
Mm,
even worth it. It's like I can't stand being around them. Let's find someone else, because there's always someone else. You know.
right. I think Ken Lewis said it. He said, "Life's too short to work with people you don't agree with."
Right. Yeah.
Um, we got a couple more comments for you. ASC Praise says, "Thank you for sharing your time/experience, Bob. Such a pleasure and a privilege. Hope to see you on Clubhouse some more."
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got the little Clubhouse grind going for anybody over here on Twitch. You can catch us kicking it over on Clubhouse sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I'm gonna give our audience one last chance to ask any questions. And then if you got anything else, Bob, that you'd like to give a plug to, or
No, I think that Warren Hewer thing was it. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you tell people where they can book you to do a mix, or where they could find your studio online to book at?
Oh, well, I have a website that's just bobhornmixing.com. That's also my email. You just add Gmail to that, bobhornmixing at Gmail. My website has booking info or it has a link to my manager for contact, and also a direct email thing for me. My IG is Bob Horn Mixing as well. Everything's just Bob Horn Mixing. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. I have one last question for you as well. Do
Sure,
you
sure.
have in mind maybe a special guest you think would be a good member to come share their knowledge on here with us?
Ah, and yeah. Well, do you want engineers, or are you looking for any particular type of person?
Um,
Like, as far as what they do?
uh, Mainly engineers and producers. Really somebody who kind of does what you do. You run your own business. You're kind of multifaceted. You work as an engineer, but also maybe as a producer and a musician. Because I find most of the most successful people in the industry kind of have their hand in a lot of pots.
Right, right. Uh, yeah. The name I'll throw out, because I think it would be interesting, because they're fairly young in their career, but they're killing it, is Leondro Hidalgo. He was just on Pensado's place. He's a friend of mine. He crosses that line of engineering, production, and all that stuff, and he works with top notch people, and he's got some good experience, and I feel like he would give a lot of good insights. And then yeah, there's plenty of another fun person for you to have on would be John Marie Horvat.
Oh
That guy,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, we just had an industry mixer out here. He came by, and that guy is one hilarious dude. But he's got so many stories. So there you go. There's one young guy and one guy that's seasoned.
Yeah, awesome. We'll talk some more, but we
Yeah,
can we can look forward to having one of them as a special guest, hopefully in the near future.
yeah, man.
Awesome. Well, hey, Bob, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Uh, I just want to say, you're a huge inspiration. You've come, shared all your knowledge. It's very kind, and continue doing everything you're doing, man. You're killing it. You're one of the top five. You're a trendsetter. Even people like me, I'm able to really compete and get access to knowledge and things about engineering that you've been paving the way for the past 20 plus years, maybe. You know, so
20, yeah.
it's really really amazing to have you on here and get all your amazing insight on all of the things that we talked about today.
Well, thanks, man. That was a very kind word. I appreciate you having me and letting me, you know, give you my spiel.
Anytime. I hope to have you back to visit us sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I hope that
Thanks
you
to
have
everybody.
a great evening as well, Bob.
All right, you too. Thanks to everybody for coming by.
For sure, for sure. Let's before he leaves, everybody give Bob a round of applause for us. Yeah. We got the sound effects coming too. I know you can't
Thank you,
hear them,
thank you.
Bob, but the whole crowd is clapping for you right now.
Let me turn on my speakers. Well, thank you very much.
Alrighty, Bob. Well, I'll talk to you again sometime soon, buddy. I hope to catch up with you again.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Have
All
a
right.
good one, man.
All right, you too.
And I want to thank everybody in the audience who has tapped in today for Knowledge That Kills, episode 2, featuring special guest Mr. Bob Horn. If you enjoyed the show today, please tune in next week, Thursday, at 5 p.m. We're going to have another very special guest again next week on Knowledge That Kills episode 3. I can't announce who it is yet, but I promise, stay tuned in on Instagram because this weekend, y'all are going to find out. Again, I want to give a special thank you to Mr. Bob Horn for coming on here. It was a pleasure, an honor, and we're going to close out the show. I want to thank all of the audience. If you enjoyed the show tonight, please make sure that you follow, please subscribe, please donate to the stream if you're fucking with it, and I hope everybody has a great night. Thank you, everybody. Tune in next week at 5 p.m. for Knowledge That Kills, episode 3. We out here.